Join me as we discuss whatever happened with Bud Light, a new Joint Chiefs of Staff, and where's all this other money from all these community programs going to in the tune of billions of dollars. Stick around. You just might learn something. Welcome to the Eric T Conversation. I'm Eric T. Well, I started wondering what happened with Bud Light. Remember a couple years ago, they had a huge debacle when they got boycotted and everything. So I was sitting there and I'm like, you know what? Whatever happened with that? How they doing right now? Because I'm not buying it. So I looked it up and I found something pretty interesting. So if you're not familiar with it, what happened was Bud Light had a vice president of, I don't know, social media or something, whatever her title was. She was a vice president that made this decision to do this. She decided to use one of these tea people, personalities, Dylan Mulvaney, to promote Bud Light. Now, they gave him a commemorative can with his likeness on it, and he was in a bathtub or something, and he was promoting the Bud Light. Well, that really ticked off the right and a lot of conservatives, and the boycott started coming. And what happened was Anheuser-Busch lost about 10% of its market share. And Bud Light, which was the number one beer in the country, lost this place to the Mexican beer, Modelo. So what's happened over the last couple of years since that happened? Well, Bud Light's still not doing good. They've lost about 9% of its market share since 2023. And they're still going down. And there's like no end in sight of the boycott. People aren't coming back to it. Now, if you were my age, I'm 52, if you were my age and you remember what it was like when you had Bud Light commercials back in the day, the 70s and 80s, 90s, 2000, they were great. They were manly. They were football games. They were like, what up? Those commercials, they were all fantastic. And they were targeted to a specific audience, which made Bud Light the number one beer in the country. And then somebody got a bright idea and decided to change it. Kind of like the person decided to change the formula from Coke, right? Go the old Coke and brought in the new Coke. And if you're around for that, that was another shit show debacle by a marketing person that failed miserably. Anyway, so what happened was it just never came back. So what's going on now is I started thinking about it. And I said, you know what? They've never really apologized. The CEO is still the CEO. They haven't done anything they can to make the brand any better. Yeah, they went with MMA. Dana White has made them the official beer of the MMA, which is great. I think Kid Rock even said, you know what? If you want to drink it, go ahead and drink it. But the majority of Americans are pretty pissed. They're like over it. And they're not coming back. So I don't know what Bud Light needs to do to get back in our good graces. I was at an event the other day, and there was a row of beers on the beer truck. There's like 6 different beers, you know, the old spigot. And I skipped right over Bud Light. I saw it. I was gonna for a second get a Bud Light. And I was like, no, wait a minute. I'll get the Mick Ultra instead. Same company, but I'm not doing a Bud Light. I refuse to because of what they did. They played us all for fools. I thought heads should have rolled over that situation. That is a huge loss for Anheuser-Busch. Now, what they started doing, they started giving discounts to their distributors, try to make better deals with their beers, but it hasn't come back on the consumers. We haven't joined back in to the Bud Light thing. I know there was a commercial last year with Peyton Manning. They were throwing Bud Light bottles around a beer, still trying to fix the problem, and they haven't yet. So let me know. Drop a comment. How do you think about Bud Light if they're ever going to come back? And if you're ever going to drink it, or if you're still drinking it, or you just don't care? Because I really feel that an American brand like that let a lot of people down by not knowing their audience, not knowing their customer. And it's a huge problem. And they're probably not ever going to come back. Because there are a lot of other beers now that we can drink. Oh, Anheuser-Busch has pushed Corona and some of their other beers that they have to try to make up for the loss in revenue that Bud Light's caused. But it's never going to be the same, in my opinion. Anyway, that's my observation of the day. Now for the conversation. Something interesting that happened the other day. Trump was in a meeting with all the governors of the states, and he had a little falling out with Janet Mills, the governor of Maine. So, if you're not aware, Trump passed an executive order banning the tea people from competing in female sports. Now, The NCAA agrees with that. The majority of the NCAA doesn't want it either. They just kind of cave to the pressure of the left. But anyway, so Trump was talking at the governor's meeting, and he brought up Maine, that they're still not following through with his executive order. And Maine says, they're not going to do it. I follow federal law. And he said, we are the federal law. We're the federal government. And she's like, I'll see you in court. And he said, great. I can't wait. I can't wait to go to court. It's going to be a very quick decision. And by the way, you're going to lose all your federal funding immediately for not abiding by the executive order. And she started yelling at him a little bit more. And he just kind of said, great, don't worry. You're not going to get any federal funding for your schools or your state. That's a big deal. And then I guess later on that day, the chief of staffs from the governors all had a meeting, and they were kind of saying, listen, let's all just, follow the executive order. Let's not have any problems. And the chief of staff of Maine, the governor, stood up, called the person that was giving the meeting a effing a-hole, and stormed out of the meeting. So I guess Maine wants to go to court. It's probably going to be upheld very quickly, and maybe it doesn't, but then it's going to go to the Supreme Court, and that's going to get fast-tracked because of the presidential executive order. And what's going to happen? The conservatives have the court 6-3. It's going to be upheld as far as the executive order is, and then that is going to be the law of the land. So instead of the governor just saying, okay, well, he's president for 4 years, we're just going to go ahead and follow directives and then move on from there. And hopefully Congress doesn't enact a law, which they're going to enact a law about banning people from playing in female sports. Okay, that's what they're going to do. It's going to be law. They're going to pass that through over the next 4 years. It's going to happen. But instead of just understanding that, wants to go ahead and argue. People don't understand. Executive orders, they are laws. Okay, they're different than Congress making a law, but it's still a law. It's an executive order on a federal level by the president, and he has the power, Article 2, to do that. Now, what people don't understand is Lincoln, Emancipation Proclamation was an executive order with Lincoln. Truman, he did an executive order desegregating the military. So there have been some pretty substantial executive orders that have been done over the years. And then eventually these became laws. But you got to follow what the president said. If not, you're going to find yourself in court. And he has federal power on the executive branch to make these changes. So now we can't wait to see what happens with Maine not following through with the executive order and to see how fast they cave not getting any federal funding, because a significant amount of states depend on federal funding for all types of programs. And now that's going to stop. And the greatest thing about Trump is he'll wait it out. He will wait it out. He won't blink. He's very good at that. He did it with Mexico. He did it with Canada. He did it with Panama. He's doing it all over the place. And he's constantly winning because he doesn't care. And he will sit and wait it out as long as it takes. And usually the other people, most of these politicians, aren't deal makers. And they're going to cave. And that's what's going to happen. Now, a lot of people are getting ticked off. We're trying to say a lot of bad press for Trump because he fired, essentially, the now serving Joint Chiefs of Staff, 4-star General Charles Q. Brown Jr. He's an Air Force pilot. He was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and Trump let him go. And they're saying, well, they're calling it he let him go because of the color of his skin. Well, they forget the fact that he wrote a memorandum to make the United States military and the Air Force more woke. And people don't get it. The military is not for that. Say what you want to say. You can't even sue the military. If you want to join the military, you got to follow the rules. That's the way it is. It's not you're not going to work at corporate America where you can hoot and holler and sue if you don't like the way this is or way that is. This is the military. And if you're a four-star general and you're woke and you're not following the policies of the new elected president, you're gone. They serve at the behest of the president of the United States. He is the commander-in-chief. So if you're a 4-star general and you've been playing politics the last 4 years, you're going to be gone and out of a job. So just brought back out of retirement a 3-star general, Dan Raisin Kane. He's a lieutenant general that retired in December, but Trump selected him to be his new Joint Chief of Staff. He can do that. So people don't understand. When you're retired in the military, especially in a general officer, if the United States needs you, the president has the power to recall you back to active duty. Now, he can force you to do that, or you can just do it willingly, or you can say, I don't want to do it. But He has the power to do that. So he's going to give the guy an extra star, nice pay raise, and he's going to promote him to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which is the highest ranking military officer in our military. Now, there's a bunch of other 4-stars that sit on that board, and technically they got more time and grade than him as a 4-star, but now he's going to be the big guy. I guess he met Trump like in 2018, and Trump just had a good feeling about him. And he's kind of a nonpartisan general. A lot of people, the subordinates that work for him, never saw him to be a real political guy, but he's a war fighter. He's a pilot, 3-star general. He's got a bunch of ribbons on his chest. He actually has a Distinguished Flying Cross. That's one that that's a flying combat ribbon for a lot of you that don't know. It's one of the higher awards you can get as a pilot, and they all like that one ribbon. So he's got one of those, and he's an all-around smart guy. So Trump's bringing him back to head up the Joint Chiefs. I think that's a pretty bold move. All the people that Trump putting into these positions really like each other. I don't know if you saw the speech that Kash Patel gave after he was sworn in by President Trump, and he turned around, he thanked Pam Bondi, he called her his sister, and they're all really close. The Babbitt, that works on Trump's staff, she helped defend him in some of these trials. She gave a little speech about Kash Patel and called him her brother. They're just all really a well-run, cohesive unit that really cares and respects each other. And I think that's nice. And people that are criticizing them all the time, they need to look at that, because a lot of these people that have been in positions over the last, 30, 40, 50 years that get these jobs, they don't really like some of the other people that work there. They're not friends with them. They're co-workers, or they know them throughout the years of working in different positions with each other. But the people that Trump is putting in these cabinet positions, they legitimately like each other. They're all friends. They're all relatively the same age. None of them have been in Washington, D.C. for 30, 40 years. And it's refreshing of the new faces and people that Trump's putting into his staff. So bringing a general out of retirement that he liked, that he met a few years ago and respects, I think that's a great move. So we'll see where that turns out. Hopefully him and Pete Hegseth can really get our United States military back on track and get these dudes shaving their beards. They look ridiculous. Those of you in the military that grew out your beards, don't tell me that shaving profile bullshit, okay? The brothers got the shaving profiles because of the way the ingrown skin has. But all you white dudes that got full beards on your uniform, you look ridiculous. You're not a SEAL. You're not out in deployment. You're not working undercover with the Taliban. You're a military soldier, and we need to have some grooming standards back so these guys are clean-shaven and war fighters and ready to work. I see a lot of these guys on TikTok that are in their uniforms. I wish they would stop the whole TikTok thing in their uniform. That needs to stop. I'm seeing these guys completely out of shape, posting themselves on TikTok. Listen, if you're a soldier and you're posting yourself on TikTok, start doing some more PT, because you're fat and you're busting out of your uniform. Remember Stacey Abrams that ran for governor in Georgia? Well, she's kind of been under the microscope with Doge, because she worked with a company or a group that received $2 billion in taxpayers' funding for a project called Power Forward Communities. Now, they received $2 billion, but in 2023, that group earned about $100. Yeah, $100. That's it. She also founded 2 other organizations right after her failed governor campaign. One of them is called the Southern Economic Advancement and Project, and another one called Fair Account. Both are left organizations, and the organizations paid $55 million in September for Kamala Harris's presidential campaign. They don't know where this money went. They can't track it. Now, when they were given this money, the $2 billion, and they were going to funnel out to all these other organizations. Now, the interesting thing about that money, it had 90 days to form a bookkeeping department. In other words, they had to learn how to spend the money, because they had nobody in that office that was doing any bookkeeping or any ledgers or any debits or credits or any payments. So they had 90 days to figure out how to do that, and that never happened. But they got $2 billion, $55 million went to a presidential campaign, and the rest of it is just gone. Just gone. So what Doge is finding, of a lot of places in our government are funneling out billions. This isn't like $50,000 or $100,000. This is billions of dollars that they are finding that are going to organizations that either do not exist, or they get the money and then they spend the money, but they don't know where or how the money disappeared or what it went to. And that's what's happening. everybody on the left that's screaming about all this, that Doge is finding and Elon Musk and Trump is going after, the ones that are complaining the most are the ones that have the most to hide. That's the way it always is. I wish people on the left would start paying a little bit more attention, because this is all of our tax dollars. This isn't money that they just have, or the gold in Fort Knox that they just supposedly are dishing out to people. This is money of our tax dollars that are going to all these projects. And the money is just vanishing, or they can't trace it. They don't know where it went. There's no coding for it. And it's the tune of trillions of dollars now that are either not marked anywhere, that are have gone out, but not earmarked, or put in like any, like when you write a check, you put a memo in there, right? For groceries or for rent. A lot of this money is like $4 trillion that our government sent out through these programs that had no memo on it. And you're supposed to do that. It's required to put a memo in there where that money goes to. $4 trillion, gone. Nobody knows where it went. They can't track it. So I hope they keep finding more of this, and they put a stop to this crazy, almost fraud-like spending that our government's been getting away with for a very, very long time. Join me next time for a little chit-chat, some observation, and some good old-fashioned conversation. Like, subscribe, follow us. I really appreciate it. Thanks.